Yo, what's up, everyone? This is Terry with College Football Stop. Bring you another show today. Got a little bit of stuff to get into. Obviously, uh, not the best week if you're an Ohio State fan. You're going all over Twitter, and everybody's arguing on Twitter about what Ohio State needs to do going forward to fix some of the issues that they're having right now. A lot of firing coaches, a lot of we need a quarterback from the transfer portal. We'll get into some of that stuff, but obviously last night the college football playoff rankings came out. Ohio State came in at number 6. So I want to talk about that, the path that they still have to the college football playoffs. And then I want to talk about what happens if they don't make it to the college football playoffs. So if they don't make it, what players do we need to see in the bowl game? So obviously, I think it's kind of obvious to most people what the path is to the playoffs for Ohio State. Before we get into that, though, the question that I want to ask for anyone that's in the chat, anyone that's watching, um, let me know what players do you think that we absolutely need to see if Ohio State happens to go to a bowl game and does not end up with the college football playoff spot. Um, because obviously the bowl game doesn't mean anything. It doesn't matter if you win or lose. You treat that like a spring game. You treat that bowl prep like it is, um, like a fall camp or like a spring camp where you're using that time to get younger guys ready. So let me know what you guys think about that in the chat, and obviously hit the like, subscribe, all that good stuff if you enjoy the content. Let's go ahead and get into it here. So obviously, like I said, the college football playoff rankings, they came in with Georgia at number 1, Michigan at number 2, Washington at number 3, Florida State at number 4, Oregon at number 5, Ohio State at number 6, Texas at number 7, and then Alabama at number 8. So I just went over up to the top 8 because I think that those are the only teams that have a chance to make it to the college football playoffs. And I mean, honestly, we're so far late in the season that's what matters at this point, right? Like we want to know what 4 teams are going to be in there, what 4 teams are going to be competing for that national championship, and what teams is their season already over. So I mean, there's kind of a lot to dig into with this. Obviously, if we're just talking about Ohio State, we have a couple games that are a couple things that need to happen in order for Ohio State to make the playoffs. Let me see here. I got someone in the chat. My boy Tax says OSU is going to be the first team out. Yeah, I mean, I don't think no matter what, but I think that's the most likely scenario. So, I'm going to get into it right now about what would need to happen for Ohio State to make it. So, with the games that are this weekend, you have Georgia playing against Alabama. So in that game, if you're an Ohio State fan, your rooting interest is going to be for Georgia because if Alabama does beat Georgia, both of those 2 teams are going to be in the college football playoffs. So that's going to be the first one. And then you have Michigan playing against Iowa. That game is really kind of irrelevant for Ohio State, but I think you want Michigan to win that just because that helps your resume if you're Ohio State. And I mean, nobody expects Iowa to beat them anyway, so I don't think there's any surprise there. The big one is and not necessarily for Ohio State, but one of the biggest games this weekend in terms of like relevancy, other than the Georgia and Alabama game, is going to be Washington versus Oregon, and this is the one we get to see first. So I think if you're an Ohio State fan, you probably want Washington to win, just so they don't try to backdoor Washington in over you for going undefeated until making it to the conference championship. I don't think they would do that anyway. Washington's currently only sitting at number 3. If they lose, I think they would drop back past number 6, where Ohio State's currently sitting. And I don't think there would be any question about that, honestly. I don't think they would have a leg to stand on, just because at that point Ohio State would have a better resume. So I mean, I think Oregon's probably going to win that game, so that scenario probably is going to come up. But like I said, as an Ohio State fan, I don't think that is something that is really going to be in the way of them backdooring their way into getting into the college football playoffs. And then I'm kind of just going like 1 through 4 here. So Florida State, they're playing Louisville this weekend, so this is a big one. In order for Ohio State to make it, Louisville has to win this game. That's just what it is. So I mean, like I said, the odds are not very high for this to happen. But Louisville's a good team, and Florida State is playing without their starting quarterback. Jordan Travis was like a Heisman contender type quarterback, and he went out with like a terrific injury. It was a horrible injury. Did I say terrific? I meant to say horrific. Sorry. But anyway, horrible injury, and I mean it just sucks for them because they're still undefeated, and if they lose this weekend, they're out. If they win, they're going to make it, but they're going to go into the playoffs with a backup quarterback, and I don't think anybody's really confident in Florida State competing on that college football playoff scale. So anyway, that's the first one. You need Louisville to beat Florida State. And then the last game that you're going to want to pay attention to as an Ohio State fan will be Texas against Oklahoma State. This is the one that I think is probably the least likely to happen. And I'm going to get into a little bit later in the show here what I actually think are going to be the 4 teams that'll make it, because I don't think Ohio State's going to be one of those teams. But if it is going to happen, Oklahoma State's got to beat Texas. Now, Texas to me is a team that is beatable. I've always felt like they were beatable. They're not a team. I mean, obviously they lost to Oklahoma, who is a 2-loss team. But I mean, if you just look down Texas's schedule, they played Texas Tech this past weekend, won 57-7. But Texas Tech's not any good. Unranked Iowa State 26-16. Unranked TCU 29-26. Unranked Kansas State. Or actually, I think Kansas State is ranked in the college football playoffs now. But anyway, I think they're number 25. Anyway, Texas beat them 30-33. Unranked Houston 31-24. I mean, so this team is not dominant. They haven't looked dominant all year. The big thing that Texas has is that they beat Alabama. So, and honestly, if Georgia beats Alabama, that does kind of diminish the Texas's win over Alabama a little bit. But I don't necessarily think that matters. I think that if Texas wins and beats Oklahoma State, they'll jump Ohio State and they'll be in the playoffs. It's probably the most likely scenario, honestly. So, again, just like I said, I mean, it's interesting. And I am of the belief that, because I don't know, I'm on the fence about this. A lot of people will say, like, I don't want to see this team in the playoffs because they're probably going to get beat bad. I don't think that this team will get beat bad if they make it to the college football playoffs. I think that even if Kyle McCord is the quarterback, I don't think that this team will get beat bad because the defense is good. I know that they struggled against Michigan. They had their issues, but they also held Michigan to a field goal on 3 out of 4 drives in the second half. I mean, again, this defense has been really good all year, and I don't know, man. I think that anything can happen, especially with Ryan Day having like 30 days to prepare for the game. And I don't know. I think I'm of the belief that if you can get in the playoffs, you want to be there, right? Because, I mean, anything can happen. I think I would rather probably go to the playoffs and lose a close game than go to a bowl game and just watch the younger guys play. Because that's just kind of, your season's over at that point, and you get to wait 30 days for an exhibition game, basically. So, but in terms of like what I actually think will end up happening with this, I think that it's probably going to end up being Georgia at number 1, Michigan at number 2. The winner of Washington and Oregon at number 3, which I think is probably going to be Oregon. And then at number 4, you're going to have Texas, who I think is going to be Oklahoma State. And Ohio State will end up being the first team left out. They'll probably come in at number 5 on the final rankings. And then we'll see. Hopefully they don't draw like bullshit Louisville or something in a bowl game. Because I would rather see them at least play against a decent team. I mean, if you want to see those young guys play, hopefully they get to play against the young guys of another good team. But that's how it is. That's how it works out, or that's how it has to work out if Ohio State's going to make it. I see my boy Mark in the chat here. He says not going to war with that QB. Listen, I agree with you, Mark. And honestly, I think it's a pipe dream, but I think that at this point, the quarterback battle needs to be open. And I've talked about this all throughout the year about how I feel like the quarterback competition was not handled properly. I don't think that Devin Brown was ever given a chance in the battle. But, Devin Brown went down. Even Lincoln Kienholz came in the game, and he looked like he brought energy, and he looks like an athlete out there. I don't know. I don't know what Ryan Day is going to do with that situation. And maybe he looks at the film and sees maybe, that he thinks that Kyle McCord is doing good, or, is like, can progress into being a better quarterback. But when I watched the film, because I did get a chance to check out the All 22 for the Ohio State versus Michigan game, and it was bad. Like, I mean, I felt like the offensive line played really well, but Michigan's defensive line is really good. So, like, I mean, they were making some plays, they were stopping some runs and stuff like that. But that's going to happen when you're going good on good. You're going to win some reps, you're going to lose some reps. It doesn't mean that you played bad, but when you're making mistakes that are not forced by the other team, that's when I consider you playing bad. And honestly, the Ohio State's passing game was really terrible in that game. I mean, I don't care what yards they had and touchdowns and all that stuff. Like, the opportunities were there to put up points on that Michigan defense, and they just didn't do it. And I mean that's just what it comes down to. There, in the first half, there was two plays that were wide open touchdowns, and McCord just didn't let the play develop and threw it to a guy who was like blanket covered. I mean, it was not even like he threw it to an open guy, and that set them up for first down. Like, he threw it to, I think, Marv both times, or no, it was Marv and Cade, and they were just completely covered. Didn't give time for the play to progress. And I mean, you could see the frustration on the wide receivers out there too. Like, it was Emeka and Julian Fleming who both came open for like wide open touchdowns. And Julian Fleming, I mean, the frustration he had was crazy. He was just like, "Are you?" He threw his hands up, and it was just, and on that one, Kyle threw an incompletion. The other one, oh, actually, both of me threw an incompletion. And the one he just kind of threw it up to Marv, which I don't necessarily consider a bad play. Like, I'm okay with just throwing the ball up to Marv because he's going to come down with that most of the time in a one-on-one. But in this situation, Kyle overthrew it by like 10 yards, and it didn't matter anyway. And I mean, those are not the only two bad plays. There was obviously just good reads with bad throws. There was bad reads the entire game. And then just, I don't know, man. Like I said, I don't think that they can go into the college football playoffs or even a bowl game with no changes being made at quarterback. At the very least, what has to happen, and this is like the bottom of the totem pole, what has to happen is the quarterback battle has to be at least opened back up. Open it up and let Devin Brown and Lincoln Kienholz, even as a true freshman, he's not a true freshman anymore. Devin Brown's not a true sophomore anymore. They at this point they've went through the entire season. So at this point, you're a junior, Devin Brown. You're a sophomore, Lincoln Kienholz, and give those guys the opportunity to take that job because, I mean, it's like my dude Sonny in the chat said that Kyle has no fire, and I think that's really what it comes down to. Like, we seen him screaming at jumping up on the bench, screaming in the Notre Dame game once it was over, but like, I didn't see any fire from him throughout the entire year. I never saw him not one time look at one of his players and be like, "Come on, like, pick your shit up, let's go. We need to do better." Talk to the offensive line. It's just like, I don't know, man. I just don't think that that's the type of energy that Ohio State needs. And you look back at quarterbacks of the past, even the ones that were not as skilled, like JT Barrett, in terms of arm talent, was not as skilled as Kyle McCord. But you look back at him, and he's the famous clip where he's like, "We hit him and hit him and hit him." I mean, I haven't seen anything. It's all kind of just when Kyle talks, it feels like it's all reflective of what Ryan Day says, which, okay, you're going to take on the MO of your coach, but at the same time, like, be yourself too. But when you look at what Kyle's saying, he's like, "Do it for your brothers, do it for your brothers." Obviously, these dudes don't give a fuck about their brothers because the energy in that Michigan game was so low, and it was just like Michigan looked like they cared and they wanted it more, and that's just, I mean, ultimately that won the game for them. They came away with big plays, momentum, and I don't know, man. Ohio State has to fix that shit. I don't know if it starts with the quarterback. I don't know if it starts with the coach, but in terms of the actual bowl game, like I said, regardless of whether it's a playoff game or if it's just a bowl game, I think the competition should be open. You have a month to prepare. You literally have time to basically go through a camp. So there's no excuse not to open that quarterback battle back up. At the very least, what that can do is spark up the fire inside of Kyle if there is some little spark in there somewhere where he can, be like, "Okay, I'm about to lose my job. Let me just like really take the next step. What do I need to do to fix these issues?" And I mean, can he fix them? I don't know, man. Like, I've seen quarterbacks take big steps, but at the same time, it's like it was a different issue every single week, and that's just like, how do you fix that? I think the Ryan Day's probably running into the same issue. It's like, okay, we fixed his footwork, and now the ball is so inaccurate that we can't even complete a pass. Okay, we made him more accurate, and now he's not maneuvering the pocket at all. Just we got him maneuver in the pocket, and now he's checking the ball down every single time. I don't know. I think that something has to happen there. Something has to change. But we'll move on from that. I do want to talk a little bit about the transfer portal being open. It's honestly kind of going crazy right now, and it's not even open yet. I think it doesn't open until like December. I think December 4th or something like that. But it's like that early window where I think it's like a couple day window or like a 14-day window or something like that. And I'm seeing tons of guys already entering the portal. There's reports of like people tampering and all that good stuff. It's gonna happen. That's the college football world we live in now. But one guy that is leaving Ohio State, which I'm surprised that anybody announced already, with Ohio State still being potentially in the running for a college football playoff spot. Uh, excuse me. But Amari Abor is this decided to enter the transfer portal once it is open, and I just hate to see this, man. Like, I know that Ohio State's going to lose some guys, and honestly, I'm okay with that because when you're bringing in the talent that Ohio State is all the time, you're going to see guys come and go from the portal, and that's just normal procedure. It happens. I just have always had an affinity for Amari Abor for some reason. I don't know what it is about him, but every time I watch him play, I just see that like dog mentality in him, and I feel like he has a chance to be a really good defensive end. And he's more of that like that edge rusher style defensive end where he's going to really get after the quarterback and really put some moves on people and make plays. But it doesn't. I mean, he's gone. Honestly, he's a Texas kid, and I think that he made some posts early on about being like homesick and how it doesn't mean the same up here and whatnot. But that was so long ago. I'm not sure that even matters. I think that him deciding to leave could potentially have something to do with maybe somebody deciding to come back. Maybe like a Jack Sawyer deciding to come back for another year, or even JT Tuimoloau deciding to come back for another year. I don't know. We'll see how that plays out. I just hate to see it, man. Like I said, looking at this team, I just feel like we need players that have that dog mentality. And I felt like he was one of those guys, man. I wanted to see him get some playing time next year, and see what he develops into because I have always looked at him from the point that he got on campus, and I said and told myself that he has the tools to be like a first round pick type player. Now we'll see if he ends up amounting to that. Obviously, that's just me being optimistic about a guy because I like the tools that he has. But he's gone, man. So we'll see. He'll probably end up somewhere back in Texas, probably like maybe at Texas or maybe SMU, something like that. I think I heard somebody float that out there. I don't know. But I think that's the only guy that's announced so far for Ohio State. Now, if you're an Ohio State fan, though, the day you want to watch out for is Sunday. This Sunday going on into next week is when I would imagine we'll start seeing multiple different guys, maybe even some ones that we don't want to see go, entering their name into the portal. And basically that'll be like once Ohio State finds out that they're not making the college football playoffs, because there's still that long shot we talked about in the beginning. If that doesn't happen, that's when you're going to start seeing guys put their name out there and try to get teams interested in bringing them in. Now, if Ohio State does somehow backdoor in, I think that won't happen. Maybe one or two guys, and it won't be like big name players that have a chance to play in the playoffs. It will be guys who just have zero chance to play. But like I said, if they make it in, then that process just pushes back. It doesn't make it not happen. So basically they would then wait until like after Ohio State's eliminated from the playoffs or after they go on to win the national championship. So that's it for portal talk. I mean, I'm not going to talk about all the guys that are in the portal or that have announced. There are a few guys that I've seen that I'm like, hey, maybe Ohio State could use someone like that. But at the same time, I didn't take the time to go look at what those guys did and what their traits are and how good they are at football. So that's just going off of like, oh, Ohio State could use a linebacker in the portal. There's a linebacker. So again, I think a lot of Ohio State fans are doing that. Honestly, every quarterback that enters the portal, I'm seeing them posted with Ohio State's name. It's just like I don't know. And then you got some of the beat reporters are saying that Ohio State's not looking for a quarterback in the portal. And I mean, I could see that, except for if one of the like a really really talented guy gets in the portal. I think Ohio State will go after them then, because you just simply don't turn that opportunity down, right? You just if you have the opportunity to get a really good player, you go out and get them. All right, so I'm going to move on from that. My next question for the chat, and I'm going to be answering myself here, is can this Ohio State team compete for a national championship? So this is the scenario of they get into the playoffs, obviously. Do you think that they could be competitive for a national championship? Let me know in the chat or in the comments if you're watching afterwards, yes or no. Because I'm kind of the belief that I think that they could. I think that a lot of things would have to happen that are probably unlikely to happen, though. And when I say that, I mean basically what would have to happen is either Kyle McCord would have to have a major level up in the bowl prep, or they would have to have a different quarterback play. And both of those things are unlikely to happen, in my opinion. I think that I just don't think that Ryan Day has it in him to bench Kyle McCord at this point after all the time that he's been the starter at Ohio State. And honestly, I mean, maybe he gets a chance to get healthy in all that time off, and he does play a little bit better. But he wasn't playing phenomenal before he had the injury that he had to his ankle anyway. So, I mean, I think he was a little bit more mobile, but still was not like a willing runner and was not out there just making plays. So I don't know. I mean, he could take a level up or have a level up during the bowl prep, but I don't think that it would be enough to where he's a surefire. We don't open the competition up, and honestly, it gives the other guys a chance to get healthy too. Like Devin Brown really hasn't been healthy since the Penn State game, and there's been games since then that I think potentially we could have seen Devin Brown come in and take some snaps because Kyle McCord was not playing well. Excuse me. But anyway, the game I'm kind of referring to mostly with that is the Wisconsin game. I mean, Kyle McCord was not playing well. He was kind of all over the place. And then we could have potentially seen Devin Brown in that game, but he was injured at that time. And I mean, I don't even know if he was really healthy this weekend. I'm not sure they would have used him anyway because they were using him in like that red zone package. I don't think that they would have made a change in this game because I don't think that McCord played bad enough in the Michigan game to warrant an in-game change. In Ryan Day's eyes, obviously I have my opinion on how I think this offense would look with Devin Brown at quarterback, but we haven't seen a ton of him either. And honestly, that's part of the problem, right? Because when Devin Brown was in the game early in the year, he was inconsistent throwing the ball. He also made some throws where you're just like, wow, if you can make that throw, all you need to do is get more consistent. He's already good at like managing the game. He's already, he's a mobile, a running threat, so that helps the run game. I can think back to one play specifically where I forget what team it was against. I think it was like Youngstown State or something. So we're not talking about a great team, but Devin Brown came in the game and he did a handoff to Travion Henderson where he then ran off to the left, and some of the one or two of the linemen pulled off to the left with him, but it pulled like two linebackers that way, and then Travion Henderson was gone for like a 40-yard run. I don't know. I just think that having that ability to read a player is huge in terms of uh, equating numbers in the run game, and it's just something that Ohio State hasn't done the last few years. And if you look back at when they did do it, Ohio State that's when they've been the best in Ryan Day's tenure at least. You look back at 2019, Justin Fields did a lot of that with J.K. Dobbins, and J.K. Dobbins ran for 2,000 yards, had good games against all the best teams that we played against. And then you look at the following year was also Justin Fields with Trey Sermon. That was the COVID year. It was just a weird schedule. Most of the year, the run game was not great. But then you look at once it was crunch time and they got to the end of the year, the run game really picked up, and a lot of it had to do with them being able to read a player and basically equate numbers, and that helped the offensive line out. So I don't know, man. Again, the ultimate question here was, can Ohio State win the national championship if they do get in? And I think that it just all comes down to whatever happens with the quarterback position and then the defense. What Jim Knowles did against Michigan was complete opposite of everything that we've ever seen from Jim Knowles. And I don't understand why he did that. I don't know if it was the tightness of Ryan Day rubbing off on him. Ryan Day telling him, like, I don't care. Don't let them get any big plays, whatever. I don't know. But blitzing, Jim Knowles only blitzed 4 times in that game. And that's just unacceptable, in my opinion. Like, you're putting your guys in a position where, okay, they're not going to get beat over top, but they also cannot make a play. You have every guy on your entire defense basically like reading and reacting. You're not letting them. You're not putting them in a position to make a play at all. Especially when it was late in the game. You look at the last drive that Michigan had that ended in a field goal. It took what 7 minutes off the clock or 6 minutes off the clock. Left Ohio State with 1 minute to go down and score a touchdown. Obviously, we all know how that ended. Kyle McCord threw an interception to end the game, but I mean, like, what do you have to lose in that situation? If you're Jim Knowles, like, you don't have to send a zero pressure blitz to put pressure on the other team or to be aggressive. You can use your linebackers and use your other safety, um, your nickel, whatever the fuck it is. You can use different guys to blitz and still have someone over the top to where if something does get past them, past your defense, they can clean it up and it won't end up being a touchdown for 60 yards. So I don't know, man. I'm not happy with the way Jim Knowles coached that game. I felt like everything he did this year was freaking phenomenal, and Ohio State's defense was way more talented this year. And then I felt like Jim Knowles got in this game and he just froze up, man. He didn't put them in good positions to win the game, and that's just how I feel about it. If you have a different opinion, that's fine. Let me know in the chat or in the comments. But I hate that Jim Knowles froze up in this game, and I know that the defense only gave up 23 points because 7 of that came from the offense, having that turnover. But at the same time, it's like situational football is what matters the most in a game like this. And you let them turn a 4-minute offense or use their 4-minute offense to drain 7 minutes off the clock. And now you got Kyle McCord, who's rattled and hasn't been playing phenomenal, and he has to drive the field in 1 minute, and he has no timeouts because they had to use the timeouts in order for your defense to get off the field. Because if those timeouts were not used, they would have just kneeled the clock out. So I don't know, man. That's where I'm at with it. I think if Jim Knowles does play or does coach like himself, this team can win a national championship if they get into the playoffs. And honestly, they can beat Michigan. I know that Ryan Day is tight against Michigan. I know that the players are tight against Michigan. But if anybody says that this team could not beat Michigan if they played them again, that's just simply not true. I mean, it's not at all. They just need to make some adjustments. Michigan had a better game plan and they were more aggressive, and that paid off for them. So, all right. The last thing I wanted to talk about here today was what players do we need to see if Ohio State doesn't make the playoffs? So where I'm at with this, I'm going to start with the quarterback position. We need to see Devin Brown and Lincoln Kienholz both in the game if they don't make the playoffs. So give me a bowl game against anybody. Let both of those guys play. Excuse me, damn. Whether that's like first half, second half, however you want to do it, it doesn't matter. Let both of those guys play. Obviously, you're going to want to see the running backs. You're going to want to see Chip Trainum. You're going to want to see Evan Pryor out there. Maybe mix in some of the offensive line. Give Tegra some of them guys roles. Or I'm sorry, not roles, but reps. Wide receivers, obviously, Marv's not going to play. Emeka probably is not going to play unless he plans on coming back. Julian Fleming, I don't know if he plans on coming back or not, but I would imagine that he would probably play regardless to try to help boost his draft stock or, whatever. I don't think that Julian Fleming is someone that the NFL is going to be excited about right now. So, but in terms of that wide receiver room, you want to see, Carnell Tate, Brandon Ennis, some of those guys get reps. Let them get out there, and because that's what we saw with Marvin Emeka in the Rose Bowl a couple years ago, and they had a great year in 2022. So, and then moving on from that, tight ends. I would imagine that Cade Stover probably wouldn't play because he's probably off to the NFL, probably preparing for that. I want to see Jelani Thurman, man. That kid's a dog, and I want to see him get out there and make some plays. Moving on to the defense. Obviously, you're going to see like Caden Curry, Kenyatta Jackson. I want to see some of those younger defensive tackles. Looking at guys like Hero Canoe, Caden McDonald, Jason Moore, some of those guys. Maybe we'll see Mickens get out there. That was the Ohio State's one defensive end that they got in the last recruiting class. And then Arvell Reese, another guy who committed or who uh, transitioned from a linebacker to a defensive end. I think he's one of them guys that has that dog in him. I really am excited to see how he progresses as his career at Ohio State goes on. Obviously, you're gonna see Iggy out there because he's coming back. Jermaine Matthews, listen, we might end up having the best corner in college football next year, and he's gonna be a true sophomore. I think Jermaine Matthews is one of those type players who he's going to be regarded as the best corner in college football at some point in his Ohio State career. And then you have safeties. Obviously, you're probably going to see like Malik Hartford, all those guys out there. I think that you have to see Gabe Powers and C.J. Hicks in that game too. If Ohio State's not going to be in the playoffs, I know I went position by position. Probably a lot of guys you know about, but I mean, I just wanted to emphasize some of those guys you have to see. You have to see those wide receivers. You have to see C.J. Hicks and Gabe Powers. Those are guys that just need to play. They need reps. They honestly should have got more reps throughout this entire year, but we had a quarterback issue and we couldn't blow teams out, so we couldn't get guys in the game. So, all right, I'm going to go ahead and wrap that up here, guys. Thanks for watching the show. I appreciate it. Hit the like button, subscribe, all that good stuff. Give me a follow on Twitter at CFB_stop. I like to post on there, talk a little shit and all that good stuff. So peace out, guys. Thanks for watching and have a great day.